You've made this transfer so many times, your thumb knows the way in the dark. Account, amount, confirm, 240 times on the same quiet morning of the same quiet week. But this time, the amount field won't fill. There's nothing left to send. Where the balance used to sit, one line, paid in full, and you wait for the feeling. You've been buying this feeling on layaway for 25 years, one payment at a time, and now that it's yours, it doesn't come. A leaf blower is butchering a perfectly good morning outside. You own the roof over your head, free and clear, and the moment refuses to feel like anything at all. Hold on to that flatness because it's lying to you. 2 days from now, something underneath your life quietly rearranges itself, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a single decision waiting in the next 12 months that will either build you 6 figures or quietly steal them back, and most people never notice they made it. And there's a version of this where you do everything right and still end up exactly as trapped as before. We're getting to all three, not the paperwork, the part nobody explains. What actually changes in how you work, how you decide, and what becomes possible that wasn't before. Here's what makes this worth 12 minutes of your attention. This exact moment happens to millions of people a year, and almost none of them are told what comes next. They cross the finish line they spent decades chasing, and then just stand there, freedom in hand, with no idea it was ever the starting line. That gap between having the freedom and using it is the whole subject of this video. So start with the number, because most people never add it up. Borrow $300,000 for a house, and by the end of a 30-year loan, you can easily pay back more than $600,000. You didn't buy one house, you bought 2 and handed one to a lender you'll never meet. According to the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the average payment on outstanding U.S. mortgages crossed $2,000 a month for the first time at the end of 2025. The Federal Reserve puts the typical payment closer to $1,600. That's not a reason to feel cheated. It's a reason to grasp the size of what you just switched off. Because the day the payment stops, you set down a weight you carried so long you forgot it was heavy, and a weight you forget you're holding stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like your own body, which is why putting it down feels like nothing at first and like everything later. Here's the honest version of the first month. Relief shows up, but it whispers instead of shouting, and that throws people who spent a decade rehearsing a bigger scene. What actually moves is your floor, the minimum you need every month just to keep the lights on. It just dropped by the size of that payment. Economists call it your break even. I call it the number that decides how brave you're allowed to be. A lower floor means a bad month at work is annoying instead of terrifying, and the job you've been quietly outgrowing loses some of its grip on your collar. And here's what doesn't move: your income, your other bills, your habits. Those don't change on their own. And if you don't change them on purpose, watch what happens, because there's one number that decides everything from here, and it's not the one you think, not your net worth, not the value of the house, and it never arrives alone. It walks in holding a trap. Call the freed up payment $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year, that used to have a name and a destination and now has neither. Point it at a low-cost index fund instead of your lender. Assume a long-run return near 7%. Leave it untouched for 15 years, and that one redirect, no raise, no side hustle, just the same money aimed somewhere new, becomes just over $630,000. Stretch it to 20 years and it passes $1 million. That's the real prize. And here's the twist: almost nobody claims it, not because they're careless, but because the money becomes visible at the exact moment life is hungriest for it. The kitchen you've tolerated for 10 years, the car making a new noise, the trip that finally technically fits, all reasonable, all expensive, all lined up for the same $2,000 that just came free. Money behaves like water. It fills whatever container you leave open. The mortgage was a container. Now there's an empty one where it stood, and if you don't decide what goes in it, your life decides for you, and your life will choose comfort every single time. So decide first. Automate the redirect before your lifestyle even finds out the money exists. In the 12 months after payoff, that single move outweighs every other financial decision on your table, and almost everyone makes it too late. But money was never really the point. Here's what nobody warns you about. There's a specific hold your employer has on you while the mortgage is alive, and they never say a word because it isn't isn't personal. It's plumbing. The house needs a payment. The payment needs income. The income needs the job. That chain stays invisible right up until you feel it on a Sunday night in the half second before you say something honest to a manager and swallow it instead. Kill the mortgage and the chain loses a link. You're not free. You still have bills. But the part that made the job feel non-negotiable loosens, and what floods in is clarity. The question stops being, can I afford to speak up, and becomes something sharper. Do I even want to keep doing this? Some people ask it and stay 10 more years because they truly love the work. Others realize inside a single season that they'd been swallowing things they never had to, and they walk. Same shift, opposite outcomes. The job just became a choice instead of a sentence. The research backs it up. In one of the largest studies of its kind, researchers at the University of Tartu analyzed nearly 60,000 people across more than 200 occupations and found that pay and prestige barely moved the needle on job satisfaction. Autonomy and purpose mattered far more. The payoff doesn't rewrite your job description. It hands you back autonomy. And for a lot of people, that was the missing piece all along. Now, the uncomfortable half. A paid-off house is one of the most illiquid assets you can own. You can hold a $500,000 home free and clear and have almost nothing in the bank. On paper, a millionaire's neighbor. In reality, a surprise medical bill, a lost job, or a failing roof becomes a genuine crisis because the house can't write a check. It can't cover 3 months of groceries while you figure out your next move. It just sits there, valuable and useless in the same breath. Here's the part almost everyone gets wrong, and it's worth being honest about how normal it is. You hit zero, you exhale, you tell yourself you've earned a break. It feels like wisdom. It isn't. It's the exact moment one kind of pressure quietly trades places with another. That's the trap that catches the disciplined ones, the people who treat the payoff as a finish line instead of a doorway. They slow down and discover 2 years later they're cash poor, asset rich, and stuck. The move isn't to relax. It's to take the exact intensity that killed the mortgage and aim it at things you can reach in a hurry. Liquid savings, diversified investments, income that doesn't ride on a single paycheck. The house was the foundation, and foundations aren't where you live. They're what you build on. And the shift shows up in the data. The Federal Reserve's household surveys find that people who own their homes outright report steadier financial well-being than those still carrying mortgage debt, not responding to a bigger number, responding to the absence of a weight. Which brings us back to that third thing I promised, the ending that never makes the highlight reel. Pay off the house and let your lifestyle rise to meet the freed up money, nicer car, bigger trips, the upgrade you told yourself you earned. 5 years later, the obligations wear new labels, but the pressure is identical. The floor dropped and the ceiling rose to match it. The work is still non-negotiable. The margin is still thin. The Sunday nights still feel exactly the same. Nobody films this one because there's no drama in a person who paid off a house and quietly rebuilt the same cage out of nicer materials. But it happens constantly to people disciplined enough to clear a mortgage in the first place. The payoff is a hinge, not a destination. It swings a door open. It doesn't walk you through. The ones who do walk through, who redirect the payment and refuse to let their spending swell into the gap, describe a life that sounds almost boring from the outside. They make choices that read like choices instead of obligations. They take the trip, not because they saved for that exact one, but because the room exists now. They weigh a career move out of curiosity instead of desperation. They sleep a little better, not cinematically, just better. The house never made them wealthy. The house was the ground floor, what they stacked on top, the investments, the liquidity, the freedom from any single paycheck. That's the wealth. So go back to that Saturday morning, the zero balance, the silence, the morning that stubbornly refused to feel like anything. It wasn't nothing. It was the first quiet morning where the real finish line finally came into view, and everything you do in the next 12 months decides whether you actually reach it. If this shifted how you see that last payment or hit a little too close to home, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. This channel is for people who'd rather understand how money actually behaves than chase the next shortcut. There's a lot more where this came from. I'll see you in the next one.